We're back in the Gospel of Mark, and so we've already taken a look at chapter 5, part 1, which was, of course, extending Jesus's visit from one side of the Sea of Galilee to another. We know that uh, there are so many miracles happening in the life of Jesus, so many people in different regions around Galilee, all the way to Judea and through Jerusalem, who are now coming because they want to see this Jesus. They want to see what he's doing, but there are others who are coming because they want to be healed. There are others coming because they want to be uh, tended to. They want their needs to be tended to. And there's a lot of faith in that this person, Jesus, can do this. And some people who have a true faith and other ones are seeking for a sign or a word that will validate their faith. That's not true faith. True faith is not having to have that word and not having to have that sign. And so, as we see in Mark, will continue where the authority of Jesus will come out. And we are going to be now in chapter 5, part 2, and we'll start at verse 21 if you're following along. And it says, when Jesus had again crossed by boat to the other side now, because remember, he went from Capernaum over to the opposite side and had met up with the legion of demons that were in this man who was living among the tombs and freed him. And the last thing that he told him was, when he said, let me come with you, and serve with you. And Jesus said, no, I want you to go to your region, which was south of where he was. Go back home and tell all the people there what has happened in your life. So now Jesus crosses back over to the other side, and a large crowd gathered around him beside the sea. Now, a synagogue leader named Jairus arrived, and seeing Jesus, he placed his faith in Jesus. He fell at his feet and he pleaded with him urgently, my little daughter is near death. Please come and place your hands on her so that she will be healed and live. His faith was true. He knew that if Jesus came and placed his hands on his daughter, that she would be healed. So Jesus saw this and he went with him, and a large crowd followed, and they pressed around him almost to a point where I'm sure Jesus couldn't even make his way through the crowd. And a woman was there, and this woman had suffered from bleeding for 12 years. She had borne much agony under the care of many physicians. In fact, she spent all that she had, everything that she had, but to no avail. Instead, her condition had only grown worse. In this world, sometimes we seek help and we find, wow, it's gotten worse. Things have gotten worse for us. And in her own condition, not only did she spend everything she had, but her condition now had worsened. And when the woman heard about Jesus, they were telling her about him. Instantly, she came up through the crowd right behind Jesus and touched his cloak. She kept saying to herself, if only I could touch his garments, I will be healed. Think of the faith she had, that she knew that Jesus was that powerful, that God was with him, and if she could just touch his garment, that she would be healed. Immediately, on touching Jesus' garment, her bleeding stopped, and she sensed in her body that she was healed of her affliction. All the money she spent, all the effort, all the time, all the physicians, but just her faith in Jesus took everything away from her entire affliction. At once, Jesus was aware that power had gone out from him. And turning to the crowd that was around him, that were pressing against him, he asked, touch my garments. His disciples answered, see the crowd pressing in on you from everywhere, and yet you ask, who touched me? They didn't understand that Jesus would look for such a direct answer with such a huge crowd that was constantly coming up and touching him. But this was different. Jesus knew that the power of God had flowed through him to another. But he kept looking around to see who had done this. Then the woman, humbled, knowing what had happened to her, came and fell down before him, trembling in fear. And she told him the whole truth. Now, get this, he heard him ask the question, but in faith, she was honest. She was truthful. She answered the question of the Lord by falling down in front of him and saying, it was me, Lord. And Jesus said, daughter, your faith has healed you. Not my garment, but your faith in God and his power has healed you. Go in peace and be free of your affliction. Well, while he was still speaking, now, meanwhile, Jairus' daughter is still dying, and Jesus was stopped by this woman who touched him, and he took the time, knowing that he was following to go see Jairus' daughter, and stopped to ask, who touched me? And told her, and took the time to tell her to go and be in peace. But now the messengers from the house, they arrived and they said, your daughter is dead. Why bother the teacher anymore? But Jesus overheard their conversation. And he said to Jairus, Jairus, don't be afraid. Just believe. Wow. He knew that Jairus had the faith to come and see him. And now he's telling him, don't be afraid. Fear is what grips so many people. Today, fear of tomorrow, fear of the future, fear of something they did in the past. But Jesus said, don't be afraid. Just believe. And he did not allow anyone to accompany him except Peter, James, and John, the brother of James. And when they arrived at the house of the synagogue leader, Jairus' father, Jesus saw the commotion, and he saw the people were weeping and wailing loudly. And anyone who's been, especially in the Middle East, but in many countries, when someone has died, the weeping and wailing is part of the mourning process. And Jesus sees this already happening, and Mark calls it commotion. He says, Jesus saw the commotion, and the people were weeping and wailing loudly. And Jesus went inside, and he asked, why all this commotion and weeping? The child's not dead, but asleep. At this, they were already emotionally distraught. They thought he's out of his mind, and they laughed at him. Well, after he had put them all outside, everyone go outside. He took the child's father and mother and his own companions, and he went in to see the child. And taking her by the hand, Jesus said, Talitha koum, which means, little girl, I say to you, get up. And immediately the girl got up and began to walk around. She was 12 years old, so old enough to understand, but yet innocent. And at once, they were all utterly astounded. I mean, they were speechless. Jesus said she's not dead. She's only asleep. They knew that she was dead, but yet here she is now walking around. Then Jesus gave strict orders that no one should know about this. And he told them to give her something to eat. Jesus understood that now, to live in this world, she needed to eat, that she had been suffering. And surely she hadn't been eating, but now she was well. And Jesus said, give her something to eat and don't tell anyone about this. How could you not tell someone about this? Well, this word, of course, spread. But Jesus was clear when he would say, giving strict orders, don't let anyone know about this, because Jesus didn't call attention to himself unless it was to glorify the Father. And at this point, he knew that it was the power of God that did this. And he said, hey, look, God has healed her. Give her something to eat and keep this between us. And that is part 2 of chapter 5 in the Gospel of Mark. Amen.